My YouTube video feed has been bombarded with reviews of the iPhone 11 and everyone raving about what a fantastic phone it is for taking pictures and video. And no question, for a phone, the results that it produces are pretty fantastic. But then, considering the iPhone 11 Pro is the far side of £1,000, you'd kind of hope that. But one of the headlines that all the reviewers are banging on about is the triple cam setup. Unfortunately, it's not quite as fantastic as everyone seems to be making out. The idea behind the triple cam setup is, given how thin phones are, there's no room for an optical zoom where the glass elements can actually move back and forth. So the three cameras have three different focal lengths. You have an ultra wide, a standard, and a telephoto lens, so that when you pinch and zoom, rather than just digitally cropping into an original image, you're actually switching between the different lenses and you're getting those different focal lengths. In essence, it's like, rather than having one general purpose zoom lens like an optical zoom would offer, it's like shooting with three prime lenses. And the focal lengths that Apple advertise are a 13mm, a 26mm, and a 52mm, so each lens is half or double the one next to it. Except it doesn't look like they are. See, none of the focal lengths on that phone are actually those given focal lengths. They're not a 13, 26, or 52mm. They're the effective focal length, i.e. what the full frame equivalent would be. But obviously the iPhone doesn't have three full frame sensors. It doesn't even have one. The sensors on the iPhone are much smaller. So for example, the main standard camera on the iPhone 11, the 26mm one, isn't fitted with a 35mm sensor. It's only fitted with about a third of an inch size sensor. It's 1/2.55 inches. So the crop factor of that is about 7.5. Now that's not necessarily an issue. All phones do that. Where the problem comes in is with the other lenses. Now you might think the telephoto lens is a 52mm effective focal length divided by your 7.5 times crop factor would give you a physical focal length of about just under 7mm, still double what the standard one is. Except I don't think that's the case. It looks like iPhone are employing a little trick where they use a smaller sensor in the telephoto lens to give you a more than 7.5 times crop factor. So you get a longer effective focal length, but it means that the focal length of the telephoto lens doesn't need to be double the focal length of the standard lens to get double the effective focal length. Now, I've been hunting around all day trying to find the exact specs to confirm this, and they're nowhere to be found. All the articles that I can see that even bother to mention a sensor size are very carefully worded that they only actually mention the sensor size of the main camera, the 26mm, but no mention anywhere of sensor sizes for the ultra wide or the telephoto. But if you look at the back of the camera body, you can tell something isn't right, because the 26mm has an aperture of f1.8. The 52mm has an aperture of f2, so there's only a very small difference in aperture. But when you consider that the focal length is supposed to be double that, the physical aperture opening on that telephoto lens should be noticeably wider. Now, if you look at a picture of the back of the iPhone 11 and you get a measuring tool and you put it across the irises of the two camera modules, you can see that the iris openings for both are about the same. Now, we know the 26mm effective has a physical focal length of a little under 3.5mm. Now, that is an f1.8 lens, which means the iris opening is about 1.9mm. But the telephoto lens should have a physical focal length a little under 7mm, and that's an f2 lens, which means the iris should be about 3.5mm. So it doesn't look like Apple's fitted a telephoto module with a focal length double that of the standard. It looks like they've gone with possibly a slightly longer focal length, but not much, and then they've made up the difference by fitting a smaller sensor. Now, obviously, as we know from the whole argument of full frame versus APS-C versus micro four thirds, in good light, that's probably going to make absolutely no difference. Where it may present a problem, however, is if you're shooting in lower light with the standard lens and then you switch over to the telephoto lens expecting the same results but slightly cropped in, you're not going to get them. The noise performance of the telephoto lens would presumably be a lot worse than the standard. Now, it wouldn't be the first time that Apple have done that. They did the same with the iPhone XS. That had two camera modules, a standard and a telephoto, and the telephoto was actually just fitted with a smaller sensor to replicate a longer focal length lens. Now it seems that Apple have learned from that mistake and now only actually quote what the size of the main camera is, not what the other two are. But what do you make of it all? Do you think it's a bit too cheeky of Apple to try and falsify the specs using effective focal length, or do you think it's perfectly acceptable and you'd still buy the phone anyway? Leave your thoughts and comments in the box down below. Thank you so much for stopping by, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.